Good evening, everybody. Tess Crawley here, Dr. Tess Crawley and Associates Psychology here in Hobart and Launceston, coming to you live again this evening with my buddy Robert, who is having a lovely old time tonight. Now, I don't know if you know, but this week is actually Women's Health Week, and today's theme for Women's Health Week is mindfulness. So I thought I would share with you a little bit of information about what mindfulness is. Now, if you've been to Kmart or Big W or the local newsagent, you might have seen some colouring books that talk about mindfulness colouring and this sort of stuff. Now, you can certainly use colouring books to be mindful as a mindfulness activity, but mindfulness actually has nothing to do with colouring in. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about what it actually is. Mindfulness has come out of some of the Eastern practices. Hi, Cara. Thanks for coming along tonight to join us. Mindfulness is a technique of honing the mind. It's a bit of a meditation-based strategy where you're focusing the mind and paying attention to where you are right at this moment in time. And you use one of the most common ways of exercising mindfulness, if you like, is to actually focus your senses on the present time. So again, as I said, that has come out of or been developed out of some of the Eastern philosophies and Eastern practices like Buddhism. And psychology has, over the years, spent quite a bit of time researching the benefits of things like meditation and meditation-based practices, and looked at whether or not they have any benefit for mental health. And what research has shown us in particular, that focused breathing, focused meditation, focused attention on anything that's meant to be of a calming nature, including prayer for those who are religious, has the benefit of reducing stress levels, reducing heart rate, and calming you down generally. So there's a lot of research now coming out that supports the use of strategies like mindfulness and meditation and similar sorts of things, whatever appeals to you along those lines, that can actually be of quite significant benefit. So in my practice, I talk about mindfulness quite a bit. Anita's with us too. Good evening, Anita. And hello, Janet. Nice to see you here as well. And Janet says she finds it very relaxing to do yoga and meditation. Yeah, yoga and meditation, they're certainly incorporating mindfulness strategies into yoga practice too. And certainly you would have a focus on your breathing in your yoga, I'm sure. So when we're working with our clients, we talk about mindfulness, and there are lots of strategies that we can talk about when we're talking about mindfulness. I talked a little bit the other day about acceptance and commitment therapy. That certainly incorporates some elements of mindfulness in that practice as well, that therapeutic mode as well. One of the most common strategies that I use when I'm teaching a mindfulness-based skill approach to my clients is a strategy I refer to as the 5 senses. And this is where you're looking at each of the 5 senses in turn and focusing your attention into the immediacy of each of those senses in turn. Now, if you imagine that you are at the doctor and you're going to get your flu vaccination. It's Women's Health Week, so let's talk about something health related. You're going to get your flu vaccination. Now, you imagine that you've got all of your attention focused on that little spot on your arm as that needle goes in, and how much you might actually feel that sensation of pain, versus a mosquito bite when you're fully distracted at a barbecue, which you might not notice a mosquito bite at all. Okay, so mindfulness, focused attention, it enhances what we're experiencing. So the 5 senses technique is all about taking your mind out of what's going on in here. There's a lovely little cliche that talks about, we spend either too much time in the past, so full of regret, or too much time in the future, full of anxiety and worry, and not enough time in the present moment. Speaking of the present moment, actually, it reminds me of a philosophy called, a thought, if you like, called radical acceptance, where we consider that the current moment is perfect because it is what it is. and we never get that moment again. So mindfulness is all about honing in on that specific moment, or this specific moment. We might start with our visual sense, so having a look, for example, at Robber behind me and paying attention to what I can see. Now, for me, I don't encourage my clients to count what they can see. Some clinicians do. They say, okay, list off 5 things that you can do. From my experience, I find that by listing off or counting off a number of things that you can see, you're more likely to be engaging in a cognitive process rather than a perceptual process. So I'm saying to my clients, you know, if they were sitting here with me looking at Robber, I'd be saying, focus all your attention on Robber, and then see what else you can see, and then what else can you see, and then what else can you see. So I get them to drill down into that visual perception, so they will be looking at not just a fish in a fish tank, but all the other things they can notice visually about that experience of looking at a fish in a fish tank. So they're noticing the bubbles in the water and what they look like. They're noticing the colour of the water and what might be floating around in the water. So there's actually quite a number of layers to what you might be seeing visually. When our practice was in our old offices in Sandy Bay Road, which we're no longer at, of course, now we're in Salamanca in Hobart, my consulting room had a mirror behind me that reflected the window in front of me. And sometimes when I was doing this mindfulness technique with clients, they'd be able to look out the window and they could see the mirror reflected in the window, and they could just see these multiple layers of reflection going backwards and forwards. And it was a great tool for practicing that visual side of mindfulness. Okay, so that's the visual. Then we move on to the the auditory, which is the hearing. Now, it actually doesn't matter which order you do this in, by the way. So don't get stuck on the order. Just remember there are only 5 senses, so count them off and work through them as you go. So auditory. So while people are doing their mindfulness practice, I encourage them to be using their mindful breathing, so diaphragm breathing, calm breathing. Quieten themselves down and then listen. And sometimes it helps to close your eyes, but you don't have to. You can focus your eyes on something and then just listen. And listen, I say to people, listen with all your ears. And listen to the layers of sound that you can hear. So for me, sitting here, if I take my little headphone out, I can hear the filter in the fish tank. And beyond that, I can hear the air blowing from the heat pump. But remember, I'm not engaging in a cognitive process of listing all the things I can hear. I'm listening for layers of sound and drilling down and drilling down and drilling down until you might be able to hear your own breathing and so on. So focusing on just what you can hear and really listening and really intently paying attention to the layers of that sensory experience. Then we do the same for the olfactory sense and our taste perception as well. Now, obviously, when you're sitting in a chair, you might not be able to smell anything, or you might not be able to taste anything, but you can taste the inside of your mouth. You recognise what the inside of your mouth tastes like. So the act of focusing your attention on your olfactory sense and your taste perception, it isn't about being able to identify lots of things. Like I've said, it's not about a cognitive list that you're trying to generate. It's about experience the sensory input. So you're paying attention, closing your eyes and really paying attention to what you can smell, even if you can smell nothing. I'm getting a low battery. And then the same with your taste. Even if you can taste nothing but the inside of your mouth, it's about paying attention to that taste. My favourite is touch. Now, I often say to people, keep your hands out of it to start with. What can you feel? Can you feel what your hair feels like on the back of your neck? Can you feel the weight of your bottom in your chair? Can you feel what your feet feel like inside your shoes? Hi, Brooklyn. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're talking about mindfulness. Can you feel what your clothes feel like against your skin? So paying attention to all the things that we normally filter out. So all these things we're talking about with mindfulness, we don't normally pay attention to all these different sensory inputs, but they're coming at us all the time. So with mindfulness, we're tuning right into that stuff, really drilling down into that present moment. And then, of course, you can, if you've got, say, a velvet cushion sitting next to you, that you can sort of feel what the texture of that feels like and really pay attention to that. So those 5 senses, there's only 5 of them. It only takes you 5-10 minutes really, to drill down into each of those 5 senses. And as a mindfulness technique, I find that one in particular is really simple for people to remember. Hey, Shelley, welcome tonight. It's really easy for people to remember those 5 senses. I've had clients who've started every day on their balcony listening to the birds and having a cup of tea and paying full attention to all that sensory input. You can use this 5 senses strategy while you're making breakfast. You don't have to set time aside to do it. You can use it while you're doing something else. I mean, obviously, you know, if you're going to use it as a meditation type practice, you'd be really concentrating on it. But you can mindfully make breakfast. You can pay attention to all the senses that are going on around you. Make yourself a cup of coffee and notice the smell. Notice the sounds while you're stirring the cup. Noticing what the water looks like while you're pouring it into your cup and anticipating the taste. Okay, so you can use a mindfulness technique, certainly once you get more practice at it, you can mindfully make yourself a cup of tea. And what that does, it focuses your attention. Because remember, I've said before, you can't pay attention to 2 things at once, not fully. So you're focusing all your attention on those mindfulness, or mindfully paying your attention to those sensory inputs. If you're finding that you're worrying about something, try a mindfulness technique to just sort of break that train of thought and bring you back down. It certainly helps when you're getting wound up about something. Taking a few calming breaths and getting yourself calm through both breathing and some mindfulness strategies. That's it for me tonight. I hope you have a fabulous evening. I'm going to go before my battery runs flat. Thank you to all of you who've joined me tonight. It's lovely to have some people with me while I'm chattering away with me and my mate Robert, who's now hiding. Have a fantastic evening. Have a great day tomorrow. Oh, hello. Thank you for joining. I'm glad you love mindfulness. It is a great technique. It really, really is a great technique. And I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great, what day is it today? Tuesday night. Thank you very much. And thank you, Janet. Bye-bye.